Hi, I'm Anna from AMF, and welcome to this Flex podcast. This is my first one. So, even if you're listening to this in the future, this is the first one I've ever recorded for myself. So, this is quite exciting for me, if I'm honest. We're going to be delving into a few questions my clients have been talking about on the Flex Big Three, which is my open group coaching program. And a lot of it has been around food, stopping things from getting boring, lunch ideas, and, looking for stuff that we can do to mix things up nutritionally while still trying to hit our goals. So, first thing let's chat about is ideas for meals and stopping the food from becoming boring. And this is really important because one of the worst things that you can do is eat the worst, driest, most boring meal that just hits things that you know you need nutritionally. So, chicken, broccoli, green beans, and rice every day, or you always do the same salad at lunch, or whatever it is, at some point it is going to become boring and we do need to mix things up. So, lunch tends to be people's hardest thing. So, let's talk about that. The first thing I want to go over is the definition of lunch. So, technically, it's a light midday meal between breakfast and dinner. Note, there's no mention of sandwiches, salads, or soup in there at all. But as Brits, we love to eat sandwiches, salads, and soup at lunchtime. It's like what we eat, that's what lunch is, and that's what we're going to stick to. But it doesn't have to be that way. Technically, as well, if it suits you better to eat more of your overall energy at lunchtime, then why not? For example, you can have any meal you fancy, but just something that fits in better for you. So, whether that's to have a slightly smaller version or to have a larger version because that's how you feel digestively or lifestyle wise, it suits you better. Why can't you have chicken pasta? Why can't you have a prawn stir fry? Why can't you have steak and veggies or a jacket potato with a chicken and avocado? I don't know. Whatever floats your boat. There are so many different ways of mixing up your food and making things more interesting. And I've got to say, the easiest thing you can do is to Google. The first article that came up when I searched for exciting lunches was the BBC recipe collection. There are people on there. You've got Tom Kerridge, you've got Anthony Royal Thompson, you've got Nadia Hussein. They're doing recipes on there that are going to be better than almost anything that you can think of yourself or I can think of for you. Obviously, you've got the giant recipe collection on the website, but if they're not floating your boat, you're going to look outside, get Googling. And there are people who write food blogs for a living who literally do healthy eating versions of every single meal that you can imagine. And these are going to inspire you to mix things up. So, what you're looking for, if you are exercising and doing resistance training, you're looking for a meal that contains protein. You want at least two portions of veg or fruit or whatever alongside that protein, and any other combination of macronutrients that work for you whilst considering your overall saturated fat intake. So, obviously, we want to keep a healthy body. So, we will be eating lots of different types of foods, and we do need to eat fat, but we are going to have some limit on the amount of saturated fat that we consume. That's easy to do when you're looking at foods that we typically consider to be healthy. Another way to look at things is to think about your favorite cuisine. So, for example, like I love Mexican food. Now, when you think about the type of Mexican food that we traditionally eat here in the UK, you're thinking about burritos, enchiladas, fajitas. A lot of those come with the wrap and the rice at the same time. So we've got quite a lot of carbohydrate in there. The protein, if you're having fajitas, obviously a lot more, but a lot of the other things come with like small amounts of protein inside of the thing, but it maybe isn't the biggest feature. Now that's really easy to edit, right? I can make a burrito bowl with no wrap, just rice, some chicken. I could be make it really easy for myself, and I could buy pre-marinated chicken from M&S or Tesco or wherever. Then I could do peppers and mushrooms and onions and stuff fried up in they do in Tesco this really great, really hot chipotle paste. So granachito it's called, and they do less spicy versions as well for those of you that don't like the heat. And then I could do all of that, and then I could like either if I could be bothered, I could make a salsa or I could buy a salsa, right? Put it on the side. I can make versions of my favorite food that help me to hit the nutritional stuff that I know that I need to feel good. I can put some grated mozzarella on there to mix things up a bit and to have that cheesy aspect to life that I know that I need, but without going too wild. So when you do your cheese grated, it goes a bit further. So that's one of the reasons why I do it because, and I'm only saying this not because you necessarily need to limit your cheese intake, but because as someone who eats pretty well all the time and I exercise a lot, my cholesterol tested high, and that is purely having given up cheese or cut right down on it anyway. That is purely because I can easily do 200 grams of cheese in a sitting. That is not a problem for me. Tastes great. I can eat a block. Like if I wasn't trying to be half decent to myself, I could eat a block of brie just sitting there. That would not be an issue. So if you're like me and cheese is an issue for you, buying it grated does help. Back to the topic that I was talking about. You can stick into any recipe website, including the BBC thing that I found. Chicken curry, healthy chicken curry. There were so many different varieties on there that you could make. You could serve it with rice. Why not? You need to have carbohydrates. You could also think, if you're like me and you find rice a bit boring, why don't you do it with flatbreads or anything like some type of anything you could do with naan. Like it's not like you're ordering like takeaway naan, which is large enough for like three people. You can do it with anything that you like because if you're thinking about increasing your protein and then you're thinking about how else can I fit in my veg, you're not going to be like ODing on the amount of carbohydrate that you're eating. And you do probably, for most people, which I'll come on to later, you do need some carbohydrate because if you're training and you're working hard, it's a really easy way to get your energy in. And for a lot of people, that's really important. So for me as well, I need carbohydrate when I'm training. So it isn't something that you need to exclude, but some people might want to eat slightly less of it, which we will talk about later. For example, you can do healthy burgers. So I looked up a healthy burger recipe and it was for the burger in the bun. It was 405 calories, 32 grams of protein, 37 grams of carbs, and 15 grams of fat, which to me sounds like a pretty good deal. Obviously, if you're determined to add chips with that, that is going to push that up across, especially the carbohydrates, fats, and the overall calories. But if you're doing this like as a lunch thing, you have a salad on the side, that sounds like a pretty decent lunch to me. And it's something that you might like, and you might find tasty. So obviously looking for higher protein, carbs and healthy fats, and 2 to 3 portions of veg or whatever alongside that. Or if, say, for example, you have a couple of portions of veg with your lunch, and maybe try and have like a portion of fruit or whatever as a snack at some point during the day. When you're thinking about your lunches and your salads, which the burger has brought up for me, if you're thinking about chopping up lettuce, tomato, and cucumber and leaving that dry on the plate every time you have a salad with no dressing, there's nothing interesting there. It's the same as just eating plain green veg. It is going to get boring, right? It doesn't. Dry salad, and specifically just lettuce, tomato, and cucumber, is never going to set your soul on fire. Like, well, it doesn't mine anyway, and I don't think it does for many people. So we do need to think about maybe like dressings, maybe interesting stuff that you could put in there. Why not beetroot? Why not walnuts? Why not pomegranate seeds? There are so many different things that you can add to a salad to make it more exciting and more interesting. And then when you come to eat it, you're going to be like, actually, this is way better. I'm really enjoying it now. Same with green veg. Like, you don't have to have it dry on the plate. There can be stuff that you put on it. I like chili oil on mine. Sometimes I actually like sweet chili sauce on my green veg because it makes it taste magical. There is stuff that you can eat with it isn't going to break the bank for you calorie wise and to make things taste better. Also, for some people, you're not interested in calories. It's not something you're thinking about. So it is more the quality of the food you're eating. And if you're making it interesting and tasty to eat, then that's going to do a lot for you in terms of your longevity with keeping this lifestyle up and keeping your healthy eating going. If you are finding things boring and you're like me and you don't really like cooking, one of the best things you can do is give yourself a bit of time in the supermarket. So have a little Google before you go. Look at some exciting recipes in like food styles or cuisines that you like, and then hit the supermarket. There's so much cool stuff in like the marinated meat section. um, there's so many different ideas of stuff, like different what you do if you're like any other person, you go to the supermarket, you buy exactly the same stuff, or you order it online, the same stuff comes every time, more or less. If you go and you actually afford yourself a bit of a time to have a rummage and have a look around, you're going to see different marinades, different sauces, different veg that you haven't tried for ages, all of that kind of stuff. It is difficult if you are like on your own because you might have to just be cooking for yourself, which does mean that you're going to have to probably eat the same protein source for a couple of days. Most thing comes in packets of two, right? Like salmon, for example, it's a packet of two. So I do have to eat it because I live on my own, cooking for myself most of the time. I do have to eat salmon on 2 days back to back so that I'm using it up. Obviously, you can get stuff frozen, but for me, that requires an element of having to think ahead, which I forget about in the morning. So I'm forgetting to get it out and defrost it and so on. So for me, it's just easier to eat fresh salmon and have it 2 days back to back. But I have two completely different meals with it. So one day I have a stir fry, and then the next, so that's like more like pad thai, maybe sauce or Thai green sauce, all from a packet. Sometimes I make my own stir fry sauce, not all the time, but all from a packet because these are the gluten free stir fry sauces that they have available, and I'm gluten free. And then the next day, I have it with like mash and green veg. But in that, it's like pesto and Philadelphia mash. So it's like different, completely different meal. I don't feel like I'm eating salmon twice on 2 days back to back because what I'm having it with is completely different. It's a totally different meal, totally different, like, or country of origin in terms of the style of food. It's just different. So you can mix things up that way. And also, a lot of people say things like, "Oh, I just can't be bothered to cook," when it's just me. Like, it's just, if there's not two people, I can't be bothered to cook. Now, get a grip for a start, because you are worth it, whether you are eating alone or whether you're eating it with your family. So sometimes, yes, we do just want to eat beans on toast and sit in front of the TV. But if you eat alone or you have to cook for just you, sometimes, like for example, let's say your kids only like white carbohydrate and that's all you can get them to eat. It's probably not what you want as a grown adult. So you're going to have to sometimes cook something for yourself and then something different for them. You are still worth cooking for just because you're the only person eating it. So, and do not get me wrong, my cook time is 15 to 20 minutes. I can't be asked. I'm not interested in the slightest in spending any longer on it. Maybe when I have someone over for dinner, I'll bother a bit more. But yeah, 15 to 20 minutes, you can still cook interesting stuff that tastes great. So honestly, don't like write it off because you are just making food for yourself. So many things that you can do and that you can fiddle with to make things be interesting for you. Which kind of brings me on a little bit. If you're, for example, if you eat different food to your partner, let's say that you're trying to eat really healthy and they literally don't care and they just want to eat something completely different, or they have really different food preferences for you. There are ways around it, and that is a lot more fiddly, but there is stuff that you can do. So, for example, let's say you're doing a bolognese and your partner wants the spag bowl, garlic bread on the side, maybe like 4 loaves of garlic bread on the side, really heavy. They've got a really heavy duty job. They need to eat loads of food. Maybe you don't have that and you don't need to eat quite so much. So you have the spag bowl and then maybe you have some veg on the side or a salad on the side or whatever it is. We can still share a meal with someone without having to eat exactly the same thing as them. And that's can be quite key in a relationship where someone is maybe like a bit fussier or they have slightly different food requirements to us. It's okay to not eat exactly the same thing. And yes, there is a little bit of extra prep in there, but that really, when you listen to the example I just gave, that is a small amount of prep, isn't it? To literally cut up salad for you or cut up veg for you, whatever. Add veg on the top, like maybe they don't like peppers and you love peppers, so you want to put peppers on yours. It's not that difficult to do that. When we're talking about the macronutrients that we are eating, we can get a little bit caught up sometimes in what we think we should be doing. And a lot of that comes from our historic knowledge of dieting. So there was, even in like my lifespan, I can remember like very many named diets like Atkins and like the cabbage soup diet, all that kind of like commercial diet and stuff. But even just recommendations of a low fat diet and a low carb diet and things like that, they've all come in and out of fashion, very much out of fashion at the moment. But for a lot of us, that can still sit in our head rent free. And we still think, oh, yeah, I remember when I lost weight because I did a low fat diet, or I remember when I lost weight because I did a low carb diet. Now, that is probably true. You probably did. But the reason that you did that, you lost weight, is because you were in a calorie deficit overall for most people. There are some caveats to this because obviously I talk a lot about high protein because everyone that I am working with is doing resistance training and exercising. So they do need to eat more protein than your average person who isn't doing anything. But obviously, there's a caveat to that if you've got kidney issues. So then you would need to monitor your protein intake. Obviously, you would talk to your GP or consultant about that before you were looking at increasing your protein intake. Obviously, for people who have got diabetes or pre-diabetes, you might be monitoring your carb levels a little bit more. So there are caveats to what I'm about to say. But for your average typical person, you don't necessarily need to do it low fat or low carb. So low fat, we want to monitor our saturated fat intake. And obviously, fat as a macronutrient is calorie dense. So it's 9 calories per gram of fat. So it is calorie dense. So it does push our calories up quite quickly if we eat a very high fat diet. High fat diets are not something that we would recommend to do, but we do need to eat some fat. So low fat diets for your average typical person are not required because we do need some dietary fats in order for our hormones and many other things to function effectively. If we're thinking about, do we need to do a low carb diet? I lost weight on a low carb diet. You lost weight because you ate less. That's the key here. When you're looking at a low carb diet, does your average typical person need to reduce their carbohydrate intake? Possibly, because we do love a carb in the UK and we do love a double carb, don't we? We love pasta and garlic bread or lasagna and chips or like the burger in the bun with the chips. We love a double carbohydrate. So possibly if all of your meals are very carb heavy, then possibly you do need to reduce your carbohydrate intake. But that isn't necessarily something that we see all that often in someone who's trying to eat that healthily. So when you see someone talking about, oh, I'm going to go low fat or low carb, remember that that is subjective to that person. So they might be eating a lot of carbohydrate or a very high fat diet. So to them, eating a low fat diet is to decrease their fat intake a little bit so that it comes into a healthier range, or to reduce their reliance on carbohydrate because they want to increase the amount of protein that they're eating because now they're lifting weights. So there is that subjective part to it where we can often hear someone else say something and we think, oh my God, I need to do that. But that might just mean that for them, for their personal journey and for the way that their current diet is, they need to make some changes, and these are changes that they need to make. That doesn't necessarily mean that you, who is already eating a healthy amount of fat, suddenly needs to reduce their fat intake. That's not the case. In terms of people who are looking to lose weight, you're looking to eat slightly less calories than you need in order to lose weight. And that is where you take it from can change your diet slightly. So some people might eat slightly less fat, slightly less carbohydrate, and slightly less protein because all of those things have a caloric value. So eating slightly less of everything would obviously bring you down a little bit. For most people who are lifting weights, you do want to keep your protein relatively high with a caveat that I mentioned earlier about if you've got kidney issues. So you're trying to eat your high protein and then obviously other things might drop down. But that is very easy to do in terms of eating a balanced diet. So we don't necessarily have to be very strict on ourselves and take it all from one place. It can just be that we eat a little bit less of everything, and that keeps our diet nice and balanced. And then we're still able to eat plenty of veg, keep our protein high if that's something we're doing, and also keep our food interesting because fat makes your food taste better. Carbohydrates give it that little bit of stodge that we want when we're eating. We need things that taste nice to us and to keep us going. So it's really important that we're not just trying to cut stuff out and then making ourselves miserable, because that then turns it into a commercial diet vibe where you can only do it for 4 weeks because you're just miserable the whole time. By the end of it, you're like sniffing the packet of something that you made for someone else. That's not a life. So just, balance it. We don't have to go to too many extremes to make that happen. And I think that's really key. If you eat too much of anything, it becomes not good for you. And that goes across the board. Like if you think, right, I'm going to pick it quite an easy example, tuna fish. Is there anything that wrong with eating tuna fish? No, it's nice. If you eat 400 cans of tuna fish, it increases your risk of having mercury poisoning. That's because you're eating 400 cans. And it is the same. It's the dosage that matters with stuff. So if you're eating fat, some fat is good for you. You need it. If you are eating all of the fat, as in tubs of butter and whatever, it's not good for you. We know that. And that comes in macronutrients. If the only thing you eat is protein, also not good for you because you need to have a variety of micronutrients. If all you're eating is carbohydrate, also not good for you because you need to have some dietary fat and you need to have some protein. So we want to have the balance. There is not one thing that is like, oh my God, don't ever have this. It's just a case of finding that balance for us. And that is something that for me is really important because it helps people to live a lifestyle that they enjoy that still makes them feel good. Because you can't, when you start excluding whole food groups or whole foods that you enjoy, like for me, cheese, not eating cheese ever for me would be miserable. Like I'd do it if I dietarily had to. If I was not instructed to by a medical professional or I was allergic to it or something, obviously I'd do it. Like I've excluded gluten because it makes my insides feel like they've been beaten with a stick. However, I don't have to do that because I'm not dietarily required to exclude cheese from my diet. So by cutting it down, now I have Philadelphia Light, which I was eating anyway, and I swapped to grated mozzarella in my food because it spreads out. Mozzarella melts really well and it spreads, so it tastes more cheesy. It's also relatively high in protein for a cheese. So I'm able to do that without excluding it from my diet. And to do that, I just can't buy other cheese because I just eat it. I bought brie to have someone over the other day. We didn't eat the brie, so I ate the entire brie the next day. So now I just don't buy it. And I have it when I'm out for dinner and I have like the grated mozzarella and the Philadelphia at home. That means I'm getting a little bit of what I like, but I'm not going too well for it because obviously eating 400 grams of cheese a week was not great for me because my cholesterol was ridiculous for someone who is this eats this well and this healthy with everything else. So, you know, we can do stuff to balance things without hitting ourselves over and over again with a rounder's bat. Like we don't need to beat ourselves up for enjoying something. We can still do that, but like being able to moderate it and pull it in line with our goals for ourselves, for our lifestyle, and our being healthy and so on is cool. That can take a little while, but for me and for a lot of folk that I work with, it isn't saying you cannot have that because then it makes you want it more. It's just saying if I want it, I can have it, but I'm choosing to have other stuff that is maybe more dense for me nutriently. So that was a very long way of saying nutrient dense, but something that is maybe going to make me feel better, maybe function better, maybe be better for my digestion. There are ways that if we're eating relatively healthy stuff like 78% of the time, if we then want to go out for dinner and I want to have a cheese board, is that going to make all that much difference to me? No, it's not really, is it at all? If I go out Friday night and have a cheese board with my friends, no biggie, because the rest of the week I haven't been eating a block of cheese a day. So it's all good. Uh, what you're eating is obviously relative to what you need as a person. So sometimes when you look at what other people are doing, it can throw you off your A game, but you know that you're feeling good on something. You know you're balancing your food. If you don't know that and you need to talk to someone about it, obviously do. But a lot of the time people can be like, oh, well, I'm doing this. I've gone keto, I've gone full keto. And you're like, oh God, maybe I should go full keto. But actually, it doesn't work for your lifestyle. You're trying to limit your fat intake. It's not something that, I mean, you necessarily want to. Like, I can't personally think of anything worse than eating um, no carbs. Like, I literally can't think of anything worse. It makes me feel great to have that energy. I like it balanced. I like to have a little bit of everything. So if someone else was going on and on at me about how I really needed to try something, I just have to be like, I'm really excited for you that you're trying that. But for me, it's not for me. So thank you, but no, I'm not interested. So you don't have to feel the pressure from other people when you know inside that something that you're doing is making you feel good, it's making you move better, you're better feel for your workouts, you can enjoy it. And something that is making someone else feel better and move better is absolutely great too if it's working for them. And that doesn't matter if it's completely different for you from you, because you are responsible for your body and your experiences and your lifestyle. Other people's is not for you to fiddle with, and that is absolutely fine. Like, you just do you, enjoy what you're doing, and enjoy feeling fitter, healthier, and happier in yourself. I feel like I've been talking for ages, so I'm going to shut up. But thank you for listening to my first podcast. And I hope, for those of you that are on Flex Big 3, I'm hoping this makes it easier for you to listen to rather than having to watch a video. Because I realize watching a video takes up more of your attention span and more of your time. Whereas that you can stick this on while you're doing housework, or while you're going for a walk, or while you're on a Zoom call that you should be listening to, but you can't be bothered to. So hopefully this is helpful, and hopefully you'll be back to listen to another one. Have a great day and enjoy your best food life, because food is enjoyable for us, it's sociable, it's part of our culture. So enjoy it. We don't have to be militant with ourselves. We can experiment. We can get sexy in the kitchen without having to spend 4 hours cooking. Let's make food fun for every person who's on Flex or who's not on Flex. Just if you're listening, enjoy food. And I will see you and speak to you next time.